I've got one administrative announcement before we get on with the rest of the program, and that is for those who might have been having problems with getting online and getting into the space, seeing as how near as I can tell we've kind of commandeered the hotel and their capability. The suggestion is that they have done some work while we've been at lunch, and so if you're still having, or if you had any problems this morning or whatever, you might want to shut down, close your browser, and reopen it. And hopefully that will solve any problems you may have had. And anything else, just let us know about. From the talk that I'm hearing, people coming up to me and everything else all morning and during lunch, it sounds like people are starting to get engaged. They're starting to get a little bit excited about this. I hope you all think that this that we're really getting to a point where we can start to make a difference. And that's important because we kind of ended with the panel, one of the Sharp panels, and now we're going to transition into some very additional specific programs that are underway that I think if you haven't heard about them, I hope you will find them as exciting as I do, because it really is the part of change. And so without any further delay, let me ask Robert Cardillo to come up, and we'll start the afternoon in a discussion about A-Space.
Thanks, Tim. And I don't know if I'm thanking you, Tim, or Tony or Tom for the vaunted first position after lunch briefing. But thank goodness it was a light lunch and the tortellini didn't have that much sauce. And so I did see people go back for the tiramisu. Jim, I saw you. And so as the blood wants to draw, to the stomach digestion kind of track, I will try to keep your attention a little elevated here with my discussion about A-Space. And my main point, and I'll try to stick to it, is this is about connections and connecting. And I'll talk to various methods that I expect to see within this functionality and the benefit to the analytic community and our customers throughout the pitch. But let me start with tying a connection to Sean, who did such a nice job of introducing Tom first thing this morning. Sean, I think, said he was 25 years old. So here's the connection. I'm in my 25th year in the intelligence business. So there we have that in common, Sean. You were hired by NGA 2 years ago, I think you said? Analysis and production, is that right? So I was the director of analysis and production, so I can take credit, right, for finding this talent. Thank you. And also, though, recall what Sean said, how much disappointment, all right, he experienced when he went to his desktop and logged on. So I'm too responsible for that. Sorry about that. But truth be known, it's all the IT guy's fault, and Grant, get ready, because the really, really tough questions are coming your way. Let's see. Seriously, though, I'm very pleased to be able to participate in this conference. I'm very pleased to be a part of A-Space. Myself and Grant Schneider, the Deputy Director for Information Systems, and the CIO at DIA, were partnered with Tom and with Mike to make a difference in making connections between and among our workforce and our customer set. And to take the analogy that Mike spoke to earlier, we're talking about foundational capability here. I'm going to add some things to the superstructure of that, but this is about the basic connections. I mean, A-Space in many, many ways is exquisitely simple. It's bringing people and data together so that they can think better, differently about the problem sets and come up with more relevant and actionable conclusions or assessments for our customer set. And again, if nothing else that A-Space does, it needs to increase the transparency, reduce barriers so that people can at least enable the potential that we talked about Sean and his colleagues that are coming in. I think, Tom, you mentioned the 50%, since 9/11. I'm actually at 61%. So 61% of my workforce has been in my organization for less than 5 years. And yep, that's daunting, and I also think that's just an enormously positive potential there. We really now are in the window in which we get to shape a generation of analytic capability for the future. And so while there's challenges therein with mentorship and training and tradecraft development and IT applications and meeting expectations of the folks that are joining our business, the upside is huge. And so I hope that A-Space is part of the realization of that upside. So what I would propose to do is I'm going to walk you through an intelligence scenario as a way to explain the difference that I hope A-Space can make to the analysts on the floor. So it's going to be pretty generic given the environment in, but hopefully you'll follow and understand where I think the potential value is. So I'm an analyst. I'm sitting at my desktop. The network's up. Thank you, Grant. And I will get an email or some kind of, usually the tasking is very particular. It could be particular to your agency. All right, it could be particular to your directorate, but somehow, that light will go off and say you have a tasking. Generally, we call these things requests for information, and in my particular case, we have a customer in the Pentagon who wants to know about some regional aggression in a certain locale. And so his question is relative to the intentions of a potential adversary in a particular region in the world. Pretty generic question, pretty realistic analytic challenge that we get day in and day out. Well, the first question the analysts ask themselves is, what do we know? Mike talked about it earlier, but that's not as simple as it sounds. We literally don't know what we know when we start working that question. And so often, well, you'll do your best to search your databases and your files and that desk drawer that Mike's hidden the answer in and all that. But more often than not, I can guarantee you that you have not set that context properly. So you're working from a faulty context to begin with because you haven't leveraged properly what exists. And I'm talking about exist in an unclassified, in a collateral, and in a top secret environment. Doesn't matter. So we're getting off on the wrong foot today. The second piece is you understand what you do know, and then you need to start working through, okay, what gaps do I need to fill? And the comment was made earlier that all too often it's a knee-jerk response. Collection, right? I need to write the collection requirement. And I will say that like a river, okay, or even like sheep, analysts will follow the path of least resistance. And it is really easy to submit the collection requirement. Almost too easy. And by the way, I used to be a collector, so I can speak of one. I mean, there's usually that question up front that people just kind of check the box, have you searched the libraries, have you researched the sources that exist and whatnot, and everybody just checks that really quickly and just says, bang, get me the new SIGINT, get me the new GeoInt, get me the new HUMINT. So again, an inefficient application of the collection system. I will go out to Intellipedia, or there's a reasonable chance I will. More and more of our population are comfortable doing that. And that will help in your research, okay, to the extent that the data might be there or you might come across other analysts. But you'll be limited on a couple of issues. Classification is one. Mike spoke about the 5 terminals. So which level are you doing your Intellipedia search at? And who's on there and who's not? And so it is indeed a hit or miss proposition. Now, let's just assume that requirement that came in, you had some period of time. This wasn't giving an answer in an hour. It was, end of the week or maybe even 2 weeks. So you had time. But with respect to collaboration, it's unlikely that you would go to a chat room or that you would go to a community of interest. I'm not saying we don't have those and those don't work. They do when we focus our attention and effort. But more often than not, you'll put together a hypothesis, maybe some early conclusions, an assessment in draft form, and you'll package that up in probably a Word document, and you'll send it to somebody via email. And that's who is that somebody? Well, that's somebody that you know, you've worked with before, you met in a prior job, or could be in a different agency. But in any one of those cases, it's who do you know and who do you trust? And That's, above those foundation. And while A-Space is about connections, what we need to figure out how to do within that virtual space is how do we enable and grow and flourish, that sense of trust and confidence. I mentioned this is my 25th year. I can say without reservation, and I tell every new analyst that joins my organization, that your value as an analyst to our business and to your customer is directly proportional to the depth and diversity of your network. All right, and no offense, not your IT network, your analytic network, who you work with, who you interact with, where you get expertise from, who you ask questions of. That was true when it was punch cards and acetate, okay, and it's true today. So let's remember, the tool we're talking about is just that. The tool is, in fact, a way to reduce those barriers, increase the confidence, build some trust. But at the end of the day, those analysts need to communicate. And Tom said we can't all get in one room. This is going to help us virtually get into one room. But on top of that application, okay, there needs to be increased emphasis on tradecraft development, on critical thinking, on structured analytical techniques. Those are, this is kind of a necessary foundational precondition, but not sufficient. So I put the report together, I email it out, I get some comments back. I feel pretty good about my response. I think it's ready to go, so I send it to my senior analyst. Okay, in whatever shop you're in, you need to get it cleared through some senior analytic review. Now, depending where you are, that might be a 1, 2, 3-step process, but there'll be somebody that checks that. And let's assume it gets through with minor edits and whatnot, and then it gets posted. Now, that could be posted on Intel Link, that could get sent to the customer, that could get printed in hard copy, it could be all those things. Matter of fact, it's going to most likely go on to the executive intelligence summary that OD&I puts together every day. But more than likely, and Tom raised this point, 3 or 4 days later, or 3 or 4 days before, there may well have been same region, generally the same question, but different agency, different perspective and the like. It is, and by the way, I start with the premise that my analysts, they show up at work at day, they come to work each day not intending, okay, to segregate. They don't really want to put up walls. I get it. We're all introverted and all that. That's true. That's our part of our basic makeup. But this idea that they want to work in a dark room, with no outside help is not right. And I really believe that if we both enable the capability and then encourage the behavior, and that's a huge part of this too. We talked earlier about how we recognize and reward. Look, all too often today, it's counts. Okay, you had 4 PDB items this quarter. She had 2. You're clearly the better analyst, so you're going to get the new job. You're going to get the whatever. We have to change as managers and leaders the behavior that we exhibit. Okay, that tells them that not only is collaboration expected, that it'll be recognized and it'll be rewarded, and that you actually you can advance much more quickly. Again, it goes back to your value reflection of that network. So that's kind of the as is, if you will, and I'll talk to a little bit about what I think can be possible under A-Space. But first, I want to share some comments that I had that should be a cautionary note to all of us here. I both had lunch with some of my analysts and then asked for some input on actually this presentation on my blog. And here's a couple of quotes. One, we'll believe it when we see it. Okay, these folks are jaded. They've been through this before. They've been told X application was coming to save the day, and this will change the way you do business. So trust me, they're going to have a chip on their shoulder a bit on this to prove that this is different. And here's another quote. I hope it doesn't become another tool that we throw money at that ends up not really helping the intended user, the analyst, only to become a higher echelon briefing bullet. Okay, that's directed at me. And I get that, all right? I've been there, and I've been on the other end of these expectations. So what I really like about our approach here is, as I said earlier, is in its simplicity. I mean, A-Space needs to be about connections, okay? It needs about reducing those barriers and increasing that transparency so that that trust and confidence can occur and that people can make better calls. So how do we propose that A-Space is different, okay, and it isn't the same old, and it isn't just a briefing bullet? Well, I'm going to speak to 4 capabilities. One is that enabling of information sharing. 2 is the lower barrier to increase that trust. Easing the process of analytic innovation, and finally value to our customers, which we must keep in mind. If our customers don't see value in this, then it just becomes a self-looking ice cream cone. So anyway, let me speak to each of those objectives briefly. First, enabling information sharing. In large extent, remember what I said, it's finding people. The one prerequisite, okay, for you to participate, okay, as an intelligence community member within the A-Space world is that you're registered in the Analyst Research Catalog. It's not hard to do. This is the yellow white pages that was spoken about earlier. You need to put in, what you're working on, what your background is, what your experience level is, and the like. But that's it. So then you're in. But again, it's only as good as those analysts keep it up to date. It also is our intent that this is not going to be a mandated activity. Right? We think that would be exactly the wrong message to send to folks. So this isn't going to be thou shalt go into A-Space and do the following project, or thou shalt do everything within there. As a matter of fact, I was stopped in the hall on the way in by a colleague of mine who's a manager of a large analytic organization. His worry was, oh my God, what if they go in and never come out? What if they're just chatting all day and not doing anything? Where's the report, and where's that? How am I getting the inbox work down? Trust me, there's going to be real tension there. There is now. I have folks of my generation that see it as a distraction. All right. That again goes to our leadership and our learning that we need to go through, so that it is not, that it is in fact just a better way to build that and grow that network so that improved analysis can come out the other end. So how do we lower the barriers? Like I said, it's once in, all in. Should there be communities of interest within A-Space? Of course there should. Should we be able to discriminate between opinion and expertise? Of course. Look, we're all living the post-WMD Commission report. We all owe it to ourselves and to our customers a pedigree of information, right? Original source, vetting of that source, an assessment thereof, and tying it down to the information, okay, that we're capturing, and then the conclusion or the assessment that we're making. So we've got to carry that forward. There's got to be a way to have, as I said, a confidence of what you're seeing in A-Space or having a discussion on. You can have some idea about the veracity. So another quote that I got from one of my analysts. The future, in my mind, is a tool in which the knowledge is available and its validity, bias, etc., is plain for all to see. That's the key phrase, plain for all to see. I'm a firm believer that, if we're in that shared knowledge space, that the veracity of the information will speak to itself, okay? People will move to those analysts that have that expertise and that responsiveness. I'm not sure if the eBay model is going to be, the way it's going to do it. You're going to get scores and whatnot. But let's face it, any of you have been in an analytic environment and, there's 10 or 100 people in your office, you know who people go to. I mean, even if you don't have a computer, people go back to the senior analyst that can give them the relevant responsive answer. So how do we translate that kind of confidence that exists in human-to-human interaction in A-Space? Easing analytic innovation. This goes to really the processes and procedures we use, the analytic techniques. Today, it's all too ad hoc. Depends where you are and what the problem sets are, what classes you've been to and the like, what your boss will approve, what your senior analyst is familiar with. But our past practice of recording those techniques is very weak. And so it's difficult as either a colleague, okay, a collaborator, or as a consumer to understand, geez, I don't know how they got there, okay? I can see the pieces of data, but there's a leap, and oh, by the way, there needs to be a leap to say what's next. Because let's not forget, our business isn't, historical reporting. We're not telling our customers just what happened yesterday. We have to tell them what it means and what it means for them tomorrow. That's the essence of the intelligence function. So there is going to be a leap, but you have to carry the reader through, and you have to have them, again, they have to have the trust and confidence in you. But then let me talk about value, which is what it's all about. We're only successful in A-Space, okay, if our customers, our policymakers, our warfighters, our decision makers make better decisions in their time cycle. And so we need to be careful that the metrics for A-Space isn't just about users and pages and counts and those kinds of things. We need to find a way, and this is bigger than A-Space, but we need to find a way to grab that metric from the customer side. So making it happen, how will this all occur? I don't actually know, okay? That's why I have Grant on my at my side with respect to the technical application, but functionally, let me tell you, there will be an access environment in A-Space, all right, which will do that connecting that I talked about earlier. Who's working on what background and experience do people have? There will be a questions forum. Again, what questions do you have in your inbox, or do you have as an analyst that you're seeking to knock down a really hard target? And I agree, Ambassador Carson's experience that we had with him on the Darfur problem was exactly that. He would come out of serious, high-level, policy-level discussions and tell us what the questions were. And I know that may sound simple. Frankly, it's unusual to get that kind of input. But I got to tell you, when the analyst can see exactly what Secretary for X wants or Undersecretary, needs for a negotiation or a tactic, it makes all the difference, because then you have much more energy and enthusiasm to get the right answer. There'll be an emerging insights forum. This will be where we'll capture those techniques, those analytical procedures and processes, so that we can share with one another what's working and what's not. Now again, this isn't going to all happen in December. It's not going to all roll out at once. We will move into phase 1 in December to begin this, and it will be a learn as you go, which it needs to be. As a matter of fact, that's the essence, if you will, of A-Space itself. So the true test is, as I said, does it facilitate the analytic process? And while I have high hopes for it, okay, one other thing, and I've stolen this from General Cartwright in a prior speech he's given too, if it doesn't, okay, and if somehow it doesn't meet the kinds of expectations that I have or whatnot, we need to recognize that very soon as well. I have a saying, my workforce is going to vote with their mouths. They're going to either go, they're going to find value in it, all right, and then they're going to return. I mean, it's like almost like any internet application. If you get utility out of that site, you'll return, you'll stay longer and the like. But we need to be at least aware enough and cognizant enough that it might not work, and we might have to try something else, but the intent should be the same. So let me just say in conclusion that folks like you, analysts like you heard today, like Sean, are who we're talking about as they come into this workforce. But as it was mentioned earlier, I've also have a very senior analytic workforce at the other end of my demographic that needs this capability as well. Now their training, their cultural attunement, their immigration to the technical capability will be different. But if we can't bring those two together, we will have failed folks like Sean and reduce the ability to network and have that senior mentorship. And let me just say, as a slight aside too, since I have a captive audience, there's a piece in the middle that we're all, I believe, collectively missing. And that's middle management, training and leadership. And oh, by the way, they need to understand the value and the potential of this, because the worst thing we can do is to take the Seans, send them off to A-Space training, get them excited, send them back to the office, right, and have the branch chief go, we don't do that here. That's cute, Sean, but can you just practice that on your own? Because I've got this process. It's tried and true. We've got to keep up with the numbers, or my division chief's going to get upset. I'll tell you, we're letting down ourselves in that workforce, those branch and division chiefs, by not addressing this key training and education problem. And that's way beyond A-Space, but I thought I would mention it. So it is about connections. It's about freeing the potential of the workforce and the managers and our senior analysts. And so with that, I will, I think, turn to this guy here and see if you have any questions for the next couple of minutes at least. So let's see. Okay, the suit is Hugo Boss. The tie is Nordstrom's Rat. Oh no, Mike, you already took that one, didn't you? Let's see. I'll read these. And A-Space sounds good. is there a set of technical parameters that ensure interoperability and compatibility among and between agencies and elements of the IC? Grant, I just picked that one out of the air. I have no idea, okay? But that's why my business partner in this arrangement is Grant Schneider. I don't know if you want to address that or not.
If there's not today, that's something that I don't know if Dale's in the room, I might talk about later today. But
Okay, the answer is there's not today. That it's certainly an issue that we need to work through because it can't be shared space unless we deal with those interoperability and compatibility issues. And it could be that General Myros will speak to this later. Is there a code of ethics for good community behavior on A-Space? There's some netiquette out there for IntelliPedia interactions and the like. From my experience, because you're attributed, this is not an anonymous space. Bad behavior is kind of like life. Look, are people going to be rude and insult and say something inappropriate at times? Of course they are, but we're going to do that over lunch, and we're going to do that in our cubes. Will it happen on A-Space? I'm sure it will. I happen to believe it'll be self-policing. I know analysts who are worried about being scooped. Hey, if I post my assumption before I write my report, that other agency, who isn't as altruistic as I am, is going to get out there and get it. And I tell them, you know what? That's probably going to happen. You're probably right. Somebody is going to scoop you. But guess what? They might, quote, win that short-term issue, but what just happened to their network, right? It just got minimized. Who's going to participate and collaborate with that person, who behaves that way? So I'd like to think that, if you're open with others, that'll be returned, but we will see. Clearly, you will be able to do this in DIA, but what about CIA and others? Well, we'll see. I mean, again, this is not a forced march. I have a very good relationship with my counterpart, John Kringen, and CIA. As a matter of fact, the next speaker is from CIA to talk about the Library of National Intel. So we're all taking our piece here, but I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, if this is about some kind of DIA optimization or NGA optimization, then we're wasting our time. So I'm serious. We will see. What tests have been done to demonstrate the utility of A-Space? I don't know. I don't know that there have been. So, good question. We'll try to figure that out. Okay, we're changing font size. We're coming up on the screen. How do we ensure trusted, cleared state and local analysts are invited into A-Space? I don't know, other than I mean, to the extent that we can figure out that plumbing problem, okay, that's the network to network issue between those kinds of entities, state and local, then I think this is easy. Okay, what I said at the front end I know is very, very difficult. So while I said, for the 18,000 that we know about, that live at the SCI, high classification world, it's a very low barrier. I appreciate that we've got other hurdles to clear for state and local. I'll ask it, but I don't know. Do you see a place for a Second Life-like concept in the IC? That's where the people have these fictitious lives on the net, right? I don't think so. I hope not. That goes to my manager's concern out there about analysts actually doing work and not wandering. I have a question here.
Two questions. One, how far do you see A-Space propagating? And when I say how far, down to the tactical level, down to the operational level, are the COCOMs going to be brought into this? And then my second question is, once we try and get this out to the various other organizations, is there going to be a sweeping edict that says if you guys credit something for A-Space, that we can just rubber stamp it for installation at our organization?
The question, in case you hear, is, what's the expanse or the scope of A-Space? What's our target set, and does it go to the tactical and command level? And then the second one is kind of an application question. If we say it's good enough for A-Space, does that if the CIO says it's good enough for A-Space, does it good enough for another network? To the first question, in the pilot phase, we're certainly going to be living at the JWICS SCI level. But it has to cascade. Okay, let's assume success and we have value. It's got to move to the other levels. Classification dependent. For example, you take tactical. You go forward. Predominantly living in a SIPRNet world, right? There should be SIPRNet A space. And oh, by the way, things that occur there should be extractable up. And there should be a way, okay, that we can have things move between those two barriers. But we shouldn't kid ourselves. We're not going to get rid of, classification levels and access. So that will be a general barrier that we will have to and need to adjust accordingly. To your other question, I don't know. As I understand the intent of the CIO, and again, General Myros could well be speaking to this today, is to deal with that issue of why each of us has to go through our own testing and approval process, and why can't there be some kind of good housekeeping. I'm making stuff up. I mean, seal of approval that we all can use. So I'll kick the answer later, unless you want to answer it, Grant. We're working towards it. That's what I heard. Thanks. How do we? I'll do one more. Okay. How do we convince managers that it's useful in creating positive environments for collaboration? Look, it's got to come out in the value. The metric can't be, hey, congratulations, Joe, you've got 30 analysts in A-Space. They all logged on today. Okay. The metric can't be, like I said earlier, that you have 1,800 pages this month. How did you answer the question of the customer in a better, more timely, relevant way? Now, that's been kind of an age-old challenge. I'm not saying that's easy to do, that kind of grand metric. But that has to be the effect. And we have to find a way to keep ourselves grounded to that, or else, again, we'll just become enamored with the numbers on the chart and the page counts and all that. So we have to find a way to take that evaluation to the customer and have them tell us. And to me, that's the way that you incentivize managers to continue. Okay, I'll stop there because I think I'm a little bit over, but I appreciate your time and attention. I look forward to your help. I know that's why you're here, and if nothing else, you heard that it's about connections, and you hopefully heard that we don't have all the brightest ideas. So I look forward to your input and your assistance. Thanks.